with you. The reason I'm doing these things is that I do want to help people like you guys that are looking for how do I become better at this business? What are things that I wish I knew, and where can I get that knowledge from? And my passion really comes from, my dad dying 5 years ago and realizing that there were things he could have done so differently, and it sent me on a different trajectory to where I'm at now. And it's one of those things that I really like to share with the agents. And I also want you guys to know that I'm also a solution. There's some of you on these call that I know are here that have reached out and they're like, hey, I don't know what to do with this property. Can you help me? Can you partner with me? Do you want to buy it? I am always that person that can come up with a different solution based on the variables that you're coming up with, because we know that when we meet with a seller or we meet with a buyer, there's a lot of different things that are going on, and it's not all in the traditional sense. Because let's look at what's pivoted and changed in our market is that we've become very client centric. The clients really don't need us unless we have something outside the box to offer and we have value to add to them. So please, I want to be a resource for you guys, because together we can be successful. This isn't the old school real estate thing of, somebody pounding on their chest for who's better and I know more and yada, yada, yada. I don't give a crap. If we can be heroes together to create that story for your client, let's make that happen, because there's money in the solution. And a lot of times there's more money in the solution than there is in the commission. Believe it or not. All right, let's jump in. Some random stuff. I got to move my screen up here real quick. Hold on, so I can actually see what I wrote in my presentation. My one ask today for my time, guys, I would love it if there's anything that's great that comes out of this class that really speaks to you. If you would tag me on Instagram, either a picture or a video, or take a screenshot of this. Really important. I'm just trying to help people at the end of the day. It's a lot of fun for me to share with you guys, even though sometimes, again, self-consciously, I look at your faces on the video. I'm like, is anybody paying attention to what I'm saying? So I'm learning to get over that fear. So, all right, let's jump in. And and one other thing too, the text code, it's an email and a text message that goes out. It's just little tips. Some of it is really stupid stories that you guys will not imagine. I think that I could probably win an award for the most random real estate transactions ever. From cows falling into pools, from having guns pulled on me, to pulling guns on people, to burning things down. I've had it all happen, and I really cannot make this stuff up. So if you want some of that stuff, and then follow me on Instagram for the rest of my crazy, a lot of stuff and stories, a lot of education. So let's jump into 5 game changers, 5 things that I really wished I knew then what I know now, right? Things that have really changed my position and how I view real estate. And here's what's important about it. We go through real estate school and it doesn't teach us shit. It really doesn't. It's all bookwork stuff. It reminds me of when I was, does anybody know I actually used to be an auto mechanic? Like, that's what I did in my 20s. It reminds me of when I went to Universal Technical Institute. They were really good at teaching us how to fix cars on books, and it didn't apply in the shop because there were so many variables in it. So these are just 5 things that I was thinking about kind of going through and what to share with you guys. So let's just kind of, I gotta freaking move my video again. Okay, couple of things. Distractions in the business. What and who are you focused on? Relationships, not leads. Marketing versus branding, and how you see a house. And then, of course, learning the real estate investing side is super important to anyone's career. I don't care how long you've been in the business. If you're not understanding the investment side of real estate and how you do it, you're going to kick yourself. And again, that's my passion, because that's the thing that my dad was really good at selling investments. He was really poor at doing it for himself. And I want to remind you guys, you got a real estate license, not just to look at, oh, well, I want to sell real estate and I want to help people. Can we be honest, you guys? We got a real estate license because it was an opportunity to earn a greater income and have a flexible schedule, although that's BS too. But what we forget about is the opportunity to build wealth inside something that 99% of millionaires and billionaires built their wealth through real estate, through bigger stuff, but you have to start somewhere. And we get in this business and nobody's teaching us where to start with that. There's a lot of conflicting messages out there. So that's what we're going to get into here today. These 5 things that I really, really wish I probably wouldn't be doing this class right now had I taken this information early on. All right. Relationships, not leads. A lot of us, when we get in the business, it's speed to lead. It's how fast can we contact somebody? How can we shove a business card down somebody's throat? How can we, everybody we talk to from all the classes, I remember Brian Buffini, it was, oh, by the way, do you know somebody that's looking to buy and sell? Like the cheesy term of asking for business rather than building true relationships with people. In my office, on my organization, when people come in, it's very critical that they understand, like, these are not leads. Sign calls are not leads. They're relationships. And your job is to cultivate the relationship. And it's okay if somebody doesn't want a relationship with you to not call them 900 times. I do not base my business on the amount of leads that come in. I really base it on the relationships that I have with people and how I can serve people truly, how I can add value to them, whether they're looking for refinances or renovation or whatnot. Like, how do I add value? Some of the ways you add value is through your social media. Don't always talk about the sale, the pending, what you did for people. Don't be the hero. Talk about the value that you're adding to your sphere and your clients through your social media. If you guys really pay attention to my social media, very rarely am I talking about what I did and how I did it. I don't want to be the hero. My clients are the hero 100%. It's all my guidance and how I got them from point A to point B. So speaking of guidance, how do you solve the problem? You guys realize that everybody that calls has a problem or a dilemma and needs guidance on how to get from point A to point B. It's not about the sale. It's not about the commission. It's about solving the problem. People that call in, their problem is, I want to buy a first-time home. I don't know how to do it. I need guidance. You want to be the guide in their story, and you want to help them through those issues. You solving the problem, getting a call from somebody that is, hey, I don't know what to do with this house I inherited. How do you solve the problem? Like, what are the options? Remember, the consumer wants options. They want things that make it easy for them. They don't want to be sold. They want to have a relationship. That's why some people do really, really well in this business, is because they built relationships and they've spent a lot of time doing it. I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years, believe it or not, building relationships through social. How can I help somebody when I see a post, when I see an agent that needs something? How do I help build that relationship? Because eventually that relationship pays off. It may not be today, it may down the road. And believe it or not, the relationships that you have are with people that you may never sell a house to. I have never sold any one of you guys a house, but I have really good relationships with a lot of you. And because of that, we've all made money together doing it in that aspect. And guys, the relationships, guess what? Right now, I bet you your relationships are really important with the cross agents. I know it has been for me when we've competed against multiple offers, and my relationship, had I been a total jerk to that agent and I had that reputation, my offer probably would have been thrown in the trash can and told to that seller, like, you don't want to work with this guy, right? So you have to remember that your relationship and your reputation is going to help you not only with your clients, but it's going to help your clients win more times, especially when it comes to a market right now. And believe me, in my 20s, I was an a-hole. The ego totally overrode what I knew about the future. And what I know now is that my relationships with you guys is critical. Yeah, I can be hard on some agents when it comes down to it, but to be honest with you, most of them I don't talk to anymore because Erica does. But it's critical that we have good working relationships with the cross sales. I'm sure you guys have all heard it, especially the ones that are new. The people that call and they start with the I've sold blah, blah, blah houses. Nobody cares. Like, that's the biggest turnoff for me. I don't care how experienced you are, how many transactions you've sold. If we can have a relationship, that's what I want. If we can work together to solve the ultimate problem, which is how does this buyer buy this house and how does this seller sell, and everybody can have a meeting of the minds, that's the end result. That's where everybody gets paid. Too many people in this business are pounding their chest with how good they are and how much stuff they've done and forget about, oh, well, the client's really the person that I'm trying to serve. Building a tribe of raving fans. That is like the thing that I've had the most fun with. You know, I've got people, in fact, a gal this morning shared my post about doing this class today. She's a hairdresser in like Wisconsin or something. Here's the funny thing. She is a raving fan because I went to go buy her house and I said, look, I can do a couple of different options for you. She ended up selling it to a neighbor, but she came back and she's like, you were amazing. And she has referred me to more people from the 15-minute conversation we had. And I've never done business with her, but I built a raving fan based on how that meeting turned out. And even though somebody doesn't do business with you now, you have no idea what they might refer, who they might refer down the road. Make sense? This is probably the biggest, well, this is one of the 5 biggest things. It's how do you see a house? For those of you going on listing appointments, for those of you working with buyers, and I'm going to get to more of this story towards the end, so pay attention to this. This is a recent house that I went to look at for an investor, and you know, the pictures on the right, on the left are from when I looked at it. The pictures on the right are the after photos that Chase took for me after the tenant moved out. And what most of us see when we walk into an appointment like this is we want to, it's just a mess. It's not going to be worth as much. It's not going to be all these things. And we're not looking at the potential opportunity. I would rather see the mess than the clean house every time. Because there's a couple of different opportunities. There's an opportunity to help the seller get from point A to point B in one of multiple ways, either by re-renting the house, by renovating the house, by selling it as is, or by putting it on the market with a cleanup. There's a number of different ways to get there. The sellers are looking for options, not a to-do list. And what a lot of us take on, I talked to an agent a couple of weeks ago, and you know, she's going through, and I remember this early on, and some of you guys have been there, where you go into a seller's house like this and you kind of like, you buy yourself a job. You're like, oh yeah, you know, if we list this, I can help you with this and I can help you with this. And you don't get paid for any of that. You don't get paid to help them set up painters and coordinators and cleaners and all this stuff. You're trying to provide a service, and that's important in some cases, depending on what it's going to be worth to you. But I've also found that a lot of sellers, at the end of the day, then all of a sudden it becomes your job to do all this stuff for them. And I've just kind of swayed away from that, from the standpoint of, yeah, I can give you some referrals and recommendations and go through that process. But for me to take on coordinating all that stuff is a lot of work, and it's not something I'm willing to do. Now, some of you guys might be in a different position, and it depends on the relationship with the client. Now, if it's an older client that I've had a long time, yeah, I'm probably going to be willing to jump in and do all that stuff. But it's also the opportunity to give somebody the, hey, do you really want to mess with this stuff? Or can I just find a cash buyer for this at this price? It has to do with the questions you ask and how you present the opportunities or the options to them. So let me give you an example of this particular house. I actually sold this house to an investor 15 years ago or 10 years ago. We sold it to him. He was going to flip it at the time. The market ended up going sideways in 2006, so he kept it as an investment property. 10 years later, it's the last one he owns here. He's like, yeah, I just want to go ahead and sell it. I'm like, okay, well, we can go through and fix it up and you can put 10 to 15 grand into it to get X amount. I can put it on the market as is at 200,000 and see what we get. Or I can find somebody to buy it as is. And so he's like, hey, you know what? I've made good money on this. I'm okay. let's just throw it out there as is. Okay. He liked the fact that we had options, and I didn't tell him the only way to do this is by cleaning it up and putting it on the market. So in a few minutes, I'm going to get to the point of where, again, I wish I knew then what I know now, because I'm going to show you how we greatly increase your income and your potential wealth by understanding this particular thing and keeping in mind, this was a past client. So, it's crazy how we're afraid to ask the right questions to see where somebody is, because we don't know if we don't ask. So just be mindful of that as we move forward. So some sellers, we're always thinking that my obligation as a realtor is to get the most money out of the seller. It's not. Or to get the most money for the seller. I want to get as much money out of the seller as possible, but the opportunity is to serve somebody in your greatest way by giving them options. And it's not always about money for the seller. Sometimes it's about ease. Sometimes it might be about money. Sometimes it's a certain amount of money that they're looking for. But if we don't ask questions, we don't know what the sale is really about. And again, we're trying to guide people through and to the greatest result is selling the property with the greatest amount of ease, if that's what they want to do. Now, we have some clients that want to go through the renovation process. That's fine too. But at least you have the options and somebody can think about, what do I really want to do? And is it really worth it? Oh, and by the way, guys, on the chat, I will get to the chat at the end of this because I don't have any class monitors right now that are asking the questions. So I promise I will go back to the chat and answer all the questions. So if you have something as we're going through this, please throw it in the chat and then I will answer it so you don't forget about it later on. All right. Of course, I can't see anybody, so this is the drawback of not doing a live class. When you get into this business, there are a lot of what we call in our office squirrels. There are things that you're focused on that take you away from the ultimate goal. So as real estate agents, and I loved who I heard this from, it was this marketing gal years ago. And she said, real estate agents are the most egotistical bastards on the face of the earth because their pictures are on everything. They want everybody to know what they do. She says, it's really funny because if you look at doctors and lawyers and all these other people, they don't have their pictures on barely anything. But realtors, we put our pictures with our dogs or horses or cats. Sorry if any of you have that. After that, I literally, for the most part, when it comes to print media, listing presentations, those types of things, my face isn't on anything, probably because it would scare people away. So I just stopped doing it. But in the industry itself, as agents, we're distracted by, and there's two ways to look at this. We're distracted by leaderboards. We're distracted by transaction counts and GCI and all these terms. And we're not focused on our income as a whole or our wealth inside the business. So we're missing some of those opportunities to build wealth because we're focused on other things. Guess what? Me being on the leaderboard or you getting to the leaderboard is not going to help you retire any quicker. And the question is, when you look at the leaderboard, and again, if any of you are on the leaderboard, this is nothing against the people that have done an incredible job of building their business to hit the leaderboard. Like, that's pretty impressive. It's not my focus. I'm not a very competitive person. I'm more competitive with myself on where my net worth is rather than where I am in my home group. I love my home group, but the leaderboard, when I get there, I'm like, oh, cool, I made it on the leaderboard. Sweet, next. It's not something I strive for because it takes away from the focus, because everything on the leaderboard is transaction count and GCI. GCI can be a really good number, but how much money did you spend to get to that GCI? That's the question. It's always interesting if you were to look at leaderboards in any company or in any business. Can we look at the leaderboard and then can we compare what net worth is or what actual net income is on your business? There's some people out there that are doing 2 or 3 transactions that are keeping a whole lot more money in their pocket based on building relationships and having that life that they want, rather than spending a bunch of money to get to the top. I quit spending a bunch of money to get to the top. It's just not important. When I start looking at hiring and teams and those types of things, I'm looking at the support that I need to move forward, and also so that I can help lead those people in the direction that they want to go, rather than looking at the transaction count or the gross commission income, those types of things. It's really important to find your strengths and focus on those. If you're good on camera, focus on that. Dive into that. Really be good at that, because that's what your strength is. That's what you're good at. If you're good with photography, or you're good with buyers, although I think most of us are like, oh, if I have to work with another buyer and write 42 offers to be rejected again, I'm going to shoot myself. Find your strengths. I found my strength in the investment and providing solutions for people. And what happened was, the more I focused on that, the more other things trickled in that I didn't expect from just focusing on that piece. And remember that, you can try to make your weaknesses better, but they're only ever going to be mediocre. The whole point of this that I want you guys to really think about is, what if you did a reverse of what the industry standard is? Industry standard is you're successful if your GCI is up here, your transaction count, and we all set goals based on transaction counts and all these different things. And I can tell you right now, my income is about half and half right now. My income from real estate sales equals half of what my income is in the investment side. And you will never see the income on the investment side on the leaderboard. It doesn't count, but it counts to me, and it should count to you, because the things that I'm doing in the background are the things that are building the life that I want when I want to retire or slow down or whatnot. So I hope that makes sense. Kelly, I'm not bagging on leaderboards, I promise.
Hey, I'm here listening to you, and it's all good.
Well, and I say that about the leaderboard too, guys, because my dad was really focused on it when I got in the business. I've been on both sides of it. When I worked with my parents, we had 7 employees. I was a buyer's agent. My dad was a listing agent. My mom, my wife worked there. My grandmother worked there. And, we were realty executives, like number 2 international team. And we did, I think in 2006, we did 700 transaction sides. And guess what? My dad was still broke. I still to this day look back and go, where the hell did all the money go? Like, I know what our payroll was and I know what things were. Like, it really still baffles me, because I still don't. My dad wasn't driving fancy cars or anything like that. So I still don't know where it went. So that really changed on what the perspective was on it. Branding versus marketing. There's a big difference in this. If you guys, I wanted to give you guys kind of something that I did recently. Some of you guys know that I've entered into the second home market up north. I'm super passionate about it because I own a second home up in Munns Park. I love it up there. We're actually building our dream home up there right now, and it will be our forever retirement home. But I wanted to give you some tips, because some of you are like, well, how do I break into certain things, certain groups, certain things? Munns Park has been controlled by the same 2 brokerages for 30 years. And I went in this summer with the intention of stirring the mud. And I did a really good job at that this year. But I didn't do it in your traditional sense. Again, get away from the traditional realtor stuff. So the 2 logos you see at the top, it's a Munns thing in the Exit 322. I literally backdoored the community. I did it with shirts that don't have anything real estate related to me. I did it with hats. I did it with tumbler cups. I did it with water bottles, and I branded the community with these. Had nothing to do with me. But what I did was I started selling it inside the Facebook page. My name started popping up, and now they have to go through my website to shop for it. So they have to go through the real estate website to get the branding for the community. It also made really cool closing gifts, things that I can give to people. Think about on the branding side is what can you create that will open the door for the other thing that you're passionate about, which is real estate. I was super passionate about Munns. I just didn't know how to break the market and break the mold. And so as I started to think about some different things, well, I want to make some cool stuff that people would actually wear and appreciate in the community that doesn't have anything to do with real estate. And I've seen both sides of it. You know, we can, we've seen different t-shirts from different agents on, you know, I sold this, or, you know, whatever it is, your team logo, those types of things. You start thinking about the branding. Is it something somebody's going to wear? The logo that we use now, the Real Estate Strategies, was born out of originally handcrafting real estate solutions, which when you think about handcrafting, it has to do with beer. Like that's what all the beer talks about. You know, we handcraft the beer from blah, blah, blah. Well, we had the logo designed around a beer logo, so it would be super cool to wear. And a lot of people look at the shirt, they're like, is that a beer logo? I'm like, no, it's our real estate company. It created something the consumer was willing to wear. Even though it's branded with my stuff, it's not an out loud buy or sell for me. It's just something that when people see it, they associate me with it. Same thing with the Munns thing. I'm starting to be associated with those logos. People are starting to see it. It took me, my goal this summer when I broke that market was to do one transaction a week up there. And I broke that market. I actually exceeded the goal this summer. But part of that was because of people like you guys. They started to realize like, oh, Steve's doing stuff up in Flagstaff and up north. Now I have a trusted referral source. So there was a lot of you guys that referred me to second home buyers knowing that they were going to be taken care of. And it worked really, really well. And I really enjoy that market. The thing that I don't enjoy, if any of you guys have ever thought about selling real estate up north, the agents literally operate in the year 2000 versus the year 2020. I'm surprised they don't ask for faxes of contracts and things like that. They are so far behind communication wise. I've just, it's frightening to be honest with you. It's like living in the dark ages up there. Good news is it's Erica's hair that's being pulled out, not mine. No, I'm not drinking a cocktail either, just for some of you with the minds in their gutter. It's Red Bull and grapefruit. So the other things too that were kind of like on the branding piece, you know, Limitless, a lot of you guys know, came from a tattoo on my arm, which came from a word derived from my dad's passing. My dad limited his abilities, which is a big part of this. He limited his mindset in how he could produce bigger numbers in real estate, not through transaction count, but through income. And so I've made it a mindset that there is no real estate transaction. Now, the seller won't always like the option, but there is not one real estate transaction that I can't solve in one way, shape, or form through a limitless mindset. Like there is so many options to do it. It's not all about the buy and sell. It's all about the option and the strategy to get from point A to point B. And that's how I operate. And that's where the business model has changed, in the fact that I can take a seller in 25 different directions depending on what's best for them. And that's what ultimately I want you guys to do, is be prepared for that mindset of it isn't always about the sale and it's not always about the commission. Create an identity that's unique to you. 2 years ago, I bought a pair of red shoes. Red Converse. I loved them. I think I have like 12 pairs of them. The t-shirt that I wear, the jeans that I wear, it's become my identity, and it's what people know. It's, you know, most of you guys know, like that's how I dress, that's how I show up, and that's probably how I'm going to show up every time. Oh, and the goatee, that definitely has an impact on the identity. So I shaved it off, I'd look like a 12-year-old boy and nobody would know what to do. So we all need to find something that allows people to identify with us and our message, who we are, and how to connect with us. I would say on the identity piece, if you're trying to find your identity, one of the things that's really helped me going forward is doing stories. I think I finally got super consistent on my stories. It's not always a ton of information, but the stories are allowing people to connect and get to know me and figure out who I really am through that piece. They don't have to comment. They don't have to say anything. But I think most of you guys know me through Instagram stories of just all the different things that I'm doing. And so that's where I'm finding my connection, and it's created my identity. That's a big piece for you guys to think about, is what can I identify with? So let me give you a tip of how I did that on creating my identity. Lizzie Hofer actually did this exercise with me, and I thought it was awesome. When you're thinking about posting, does anybody else have like severe anxiety about, oh my God, what am I going to post today? Or is it going to be okay? Or what does it look like? Because if you're like me, I still have anxiety over this crap. It drives me nuts. So yes, I have all the same fears you guys do about it. Lizzie went through an exercise where we took 5 sticky notes and we divided them up. And she said, let's talk about 5 things that are purposeful to you, that are meaningful to you, that you can post about naturally, so it doesn't become a sale thing. So, and it took me almost a year to kind of like really figure it out. Like, what the hell am I doing with this? So we laid it out. You guys know that I'm super passionate about my boys. We have a lot of fun. I'm a total class clown. I like to be out and about and, doing things with them. That, being a dad is one of my number one responsibilities, and it's really important to me. So I started creating posts around my kids and my family and how important family is to me. And that it relates to all kinds of different things. Then I started posting some things about my wife. I'm married to a woman, female general contractor who's a total badass. The woman does not need me anywhere. I started posting about what's it like to be married to somebody like that, who's running her own business, running her own company, who spends 90% of her time out in the field with guys. I spend all my time in the office with women. For some odd reason, I just get along better with women than I do men. Sorry, Ben. But, and then, the other passions were talking about investment real estate. I love to talk about investments and the opportunity. And then I started posting more about up north and second homes and what that means. So take 4 or 5, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 2, find some things you're passionate about and intertwine that with your career of real estate. It doesn't always have to be about real estate. People want to connect with you. And it goes back to the previous slide of, this is how you build connection and how you build relationships. I can't tell you how much business has come through social media from the connection, not from the sale. If you can connect with somebody, that's where the commission and that's where your income is going to come from. Oh, bonus tip, we all do closing gifts and we do random things. Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand. His podcast is awesome. If you can, start listening to his stuff on a regular basis. He's super easy to listen to. He's funny. I've gotten a lot of stuff from him that I've deployed in my own business. But episode 205, a guy that owns a company called Giftology did a episode that talks about ways to gift people things that they will remember, they will show their gratitude for it. And one of those things is that, and we've all done it, me included, really bad. You brand a gift with all your crap on it, and you have to get away from that. I stopped it. Like, I didn't realize this until, 90 days ago. And I started looking at different gifts. So I'll give you a great idea. I sold a house up north in Munns to a successful young entrepreneur, wine drinker, super cool guy. And I was trying to figure out, like, what do I really get this guy? He can buy anything he wants. What does it look like? I can do all these different things. And I ended up doing a shadow box that had a wine cork hole in the top of it. And he actually, funny thing was, when he came up to look at the house, I had him stay with me. I had never met him. So weird. I'm like, hey, why don't you come stay at my house with me? And, we had some wine that night, and I saved the corks, and I wrote a couple of funny comments on it. Like, first time meeting my realtor, stayed at his house. His girlfriend likes cheesy carrots, which was super gross, but I wrote that on the cork. And then when I brought in the box, the shadow box just says Cabin Rules on it. It's like rest, relax, and a bunch of other stuff. But you can fill it up with corks. And so when I gave it to them, it was like the most amazing gift he'd ever gotten. And it had nothing to do with me on it. It had to do with an actual feeling and listening and watching and giving them something. So the gifting and the branding, don't brand your gifts. Let it be a true gift of appreciation rather than a gift of trying to slide in there under the radar with some branding on it. Okay. Part of my class was 2 times, 5 times, 10 times your income. This is the same house I showed you earlier. This is probably where I'm going to get super passionate about. And I want you guys to really, really understand this. This is part of the investing stuff that, God, I wish there was somebody that would have taught me about this in the year 1999 when I got my license. And I wished I would have had it so ingrained in me that when the 2008 market came around, I would have been a multi-gazillionaire at this point for all the 30,000 homes I sold back then that I didn't do anything with. And I know that some of us have regrets about that back then. Part of it was because we didn't have the mindset or the creativity or the thought process going forward of, okay, there's got to be another way besides me having the money to buy this house. And right now, that is the number one thing that holds us back from investing in real estate. Is like, I don't have the money. Well, you do. You're just not asking the right questions. You're not thinking about the right relationships. So this is a $200,000 house. As a realtor, when you walk in the door, you're like, I got a listing appointment. It's going to be great. I'm going to earn $6,000 at the end of 90 days, and it's going to be awesome. Great. I'm going to get some buyer calls off. Like, there's so many opportunities, and you're super excited about it. And guess what? I want you to be excited about that early on. But I also want you to understand that there's other opportunities behind it, because you still have to create an income, and you still have to have the education of selling homes. You still need to go through objections and contracts and all the chaos that we go through, because that's what's going to make you really good at what you do down the road. But there's a mixture of it. There's a balance. Okay. So let me walk you through this process with this client. I went to him. I'm like, hey, I think the house as is worth about 200 grand. And we kind of went back and forth. I'm like, hey, if you can net $200,000 in the house the way it is, does that number work for you? Yes, that would be awesome. I'd be super happy with that. Great. We can go multiple ways to get you to that point. So let's talk about it. I said, okay, I can list it. This is what it's going to look like. You're going to have 12 grand, in commissions, and you're going to have some closing costs, and we're going to have inspections and all this other junk, which he was very aware of, right? That's the standard realtor conversation. If you don't know, but you've heard, which I'm sure that some of you have mixed messages and are like, which I do too. So wholesalers, let me give you a different version of what a wholesaler is. And for those of you who don't know, the simple version of wholesaling is contract flipping. They get somebody to agree to a contract. They sell that contract for a number, which is what they make. And what I look at it is an opportunity provider. A wholesaler is finding an opportunity that I can buy, and they're going to get paid for that opportunity. Usually with less work and less effort than it takes to actually sell a house if a seller is ready for that solution. So this seller was ready for that solution. He said, hey, I told him, okay, 200 grand. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to make 10 grand by selling the opportunity to someone. Are you okay with that? You don't have to put it on the market. We don't have to list it. You do have to sign a contract with me. Okay, great. He signed a contract for 200 grand. I put it out for 210. I had one taker on it, which means I was going to make $10,000 in 10 days, not doing anything but having an opportunity. Now, I'm actually grateful that that investor went away because it gave me time to think about it. So now the wholesale opportunity went away. I could have made 10 grand in 10 to 14 days and been good. So it's almost double what you would have made listing the house in a week rather than 90 days down the road and a whole lot of chaos and work, right? This doesn't work every time for everybody. I'm just saying it's an option that you should consider if you can get a seller to a net number. There's a lot more to this, but I wanted to show you the different phases and kind of where I've come and where I wished I would have done more of early on. Flipper. Flipping homes is a lot of fun, right? Everybody should do it because you could all should experience the gratification of it, of bringing something back to life. You should experience the pain of losing money on a flip, and you should experience the glory of making a bunch of money when you flip something. Okay, this particular house, the flip probably would have, like, I bought the house for 200,000. We could have flipped it, put 10 to 15 into it and made 20 grand, especially in this market, right? Seems like a lot of money. But when you start taking things into consideration of, well, I made 20 grand, I'm going to have to give IRS 5 grand out of that because it's considered ordinary income. I made 15. I made a little bit more than the wholesaler or the opportunity with a lot more risk. Okay. Now let's go to the position I'm in now. I bought the house for 200,000 from the seller. The seller agreed to carry the note at 7%. So I have zero money into this property. Nothing. I don't have a dime into it. I have complete control over it. I have title to it. I'm paying the guy 7%. So even if I had shitty credit or anything else, I still bought a house. No money, no banks. I closed on it in 7 days for 200 grand. I really started paying attention to what's happening in our rental market. And by the way, if you're invested in real estate and you know what's happening on the rental side, the investment side, and the traditional side, you're able to see all the opportunities. If you don't have anything to do with the investment side, you're not going to see the opportunities. So here's what it looks like now. I bought the house for 200 grand. I put 10 grand into it. It really needed carpet and paint. The roof was replaced, 5 years ago. The house appraised for $255,000. I have $40,000 in equity. The house literally rents. My mortgage payment will be $825 a month. It just rented for $1,700 a month. I have no tax liability from the increase in value on the property because I still own it. And the same amount of money I could have collected one time in any one of the previous scenarios, I will now collect annually. Now, to be, fair about it, we're in one of the highest rental markets we've ever seen, but it's also one of those things, like, even if it comes down in half of that and I'm making 5 grand a year on it for the next 20 years, you do the math, and I have a free and clear asset at the end of that time. Oh, and by the way, the perfect storm is the fact that refinancing it, I'm getting a 2.9% fixed 30-year rate on this property. So I have a good value on it. I have a really low rate locked in, and God knows I can always rent that house for $850 a month, right? You have to find that balance of what you're doing and understanding that these are all the things that I wished I knew then, and now that I'm deploying in my regular business on a daily basis. Not everything's about the sale. I don't need the $6,000 right now. I don't need the $10,000 right now, but some of you do. And you have to build up to that point. But my question is, yes, I need to do commissions, which I do commissions. I have traditional real estate that I do on a regular basis, just like all of you guys. But part of my business is also spent by finding the opportunity of, hey, I found an opportunity. I'm going to sell it to somebody else because I don't want to mess with flipping it, and I certainly don't want to hold it. Done. That's out, right? Do I want to flip it? Is it worth the risk? Right now, the numbers are getting tight. Lumber's more expensive. Materials are more expensive. It's all shiftable. You can pivot on a dime, and it all relates to the buy and the solution that you're providing. The bigger the solution you provide to somebody, the more money you're going to make, without a doubt. And remember, it's income. It's not necessarily commission based. It's income. Some of you are trying to figure out, well, where do I start with this? Well, you need to learn the realtor thing first. Don't get me wrong. You still have to do listings. You still have to do those things. But the next time you walk into a house that looks worse than this one, what do you do with it? Where do you go? What's the opportunity? I want you to think about that opportunity. Is there a better solution for my seller? Is there a way to make more than just a commission on this property? Because I remember when I was first in the business, you see an opportunity, like you're like, I'm going to double end this sucker. Like, I'm going to go find a buyer, and then I'm going to be a dual agent, and this is what it's going to look like, and it's going to be awesome. And then it works, but you could have done something a little different, which is the opportunity provider, which is like, hey, guess what? You can still dual rep it without dual repping it, which means, hey, I found an opportunity. Some of you guys on this call have made this call to me. I've got this crappy house. Do you want to buy it? Yep, I'll buy it. I'll be your cash buyer. What's in it for you? I always make sure my agents are taken care of. And that's the way we both win. That's the way we become the hero to the client. Like, oh my God, you helped me get out of this house. I got exactly what I wanted out of it. I got to lease it back. There's so many variables in it. So guys, that's really the 5 things that I wished I would have deployed in my business 15 years ago. And I hope that it was super helpful. So now I'm going to jump into some chats. Kelly, do you want to unmute, or do you guys just want to unmute as you want to talk? So I'm game for questions. Man, nobody's got their video on. Well, Rhonda does. A few people do. So what do you guys got? Who wants to unmute and start? Let me find the chat here real quick. Come on. As you can see, I'm a super pro at using this. It's up here. Okay. Why isn't it coming up? Oh, there it is. Nobody has any questions? Barbara, you are more than welcome for sharing. Sherry, it requires a goatee and a t-shirt to grow up and be like me. Thank you guys for all the comments. Does anybody have any specific questions about the things that I talked about? Anybody want to bring up a scenario they want me to walk you through right now? Anybody have any regrets about something they let go that they could have done differently? Don't make me pick on one of you guys.
I'll ask.
Do it.
Okay. So my husband and I are at that first hurdle of getting our first property and having that 20% down.
Yep.
Is that the only way to acquire a rental property?
No. I will tell you how I started. So the first rental I bought, I actually used hard money. So let's go through the scenario with you first. Are you guys buying something that's below market that needs work?
Well, we're not buying anything right now because
Okay.
we don't have 20% for anything.
Okay. Do you have any money?
A little bit.
Okay. Do you have the income to support a negative cash flow for a short period of time?
Like, you mean if we're paying a mortgage payment or something and we don't have renters in place?
Okay. That's part of it. Let me give you my scenario of the very first home I purchased. So you guys can even look it up. It's 2047 West Wood in Phoenix. It's in Moon Valley Gardens. It was the Zillow lead. So let me put this in perspective from standard real estate. And this is before I got knee deep into what I was doing. The guy called. His mom passed away. I met him over there on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m. He was in from North Carolina. We walked the house. You know, it was probably worth 160 at the time. And he's like, I need to do paint, carpet, get this stuff out, blah, blah, blah. I went through the listing stuff with him. I was walking out the door and I'm like, how about I give you $100,000 for it? And then I swallowed really hard because I'm like, man, this guy's going to shoot me. He turned and looked at me, he says, give me 102.5 and I'm out of here. I'm like, oh shit. Now what? I don't have any money. I can't pay cash for this. What was my risk in asking him that question? I could have lost a $4,000 listing appointment? Maybe. Pretty sure I could have swung it back around. But if I didn't ask, I wouldn't know. Mm-hmm. So now I have a signed contract for 102.5 going, I don't have $102,000, nor can I qualify for a loan, nor do I have 20% down.
Right.
So I started looking at, okay, who do I know that has money? Mm-hmm. So I actually went to my racquetball partner who, you know, he had money. I'm like, hey, would you loan me $115,000 to buy this house? I don't have any money to put down at 10%. Mm-hmm. He went and drove by the house because that's what he does because he's retired. And he loaned me the $115,000. The $115,000 gave me enough to buy the house, do some repairs, and get it rented. Now, my payment on that house was about, I think, $1,200 if I do the math right, on interest only. So I'm paying $1,200 a month. I now have a tenant in place, but I have a negative $300 a month cash flow on it. Mm-hmm. The risk in this was, hey, I've got enough money. Can I afford $300 a month negative in order to secure the asset? See, here's what we do as real estate agents or investors. Like, oh, I want to go buy an investment property. That's awesome, and you should. If I'm a realtor, remember what I said, our license provides opportunity. Mm-hmm. I don't go buy rental properties to buy rental properties. Mm-hmm. I buy deals. I buy stuff with equity in them. I buy stuff that's trashed because that's really where I'm going to make my money going forward. Mm-hmm. And it's also the opportunities that all of us see day in, day out. You could go to your next listing appointment and go, well, this is my ideal rental property. And by the way, that's really important. You need to know what your ideal rental property is so that you're aware of the opportunity when it starts. Okay. That was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a 1-car carport and no pool. I was in. Like, that's my ideal rental property. Okay. So I wanted the rental property more than I wanted the listing. Mm-hmm. And because I was able to buy it at $50,000 below market, I was okay absorbing. I didn't care what it took to absorb $300 a month, because here's what happens. A year later, I refinanced it, which, by the way, you don't have to wait a year anymore to do it. You can do it next day, which is a whole nother complication when it comes down to this stuff. But where I started was I took that house. I bought $50,000 in equity in it. When I refinanced it a year later, my payment went down to $700 a month. And I used the spread in the deal. That $50,000 was my down payment.
Gotcha.
So when you're buying rentals, it's about the equity in the deal, not just buying a house. Now, we sell investments to investors that way because what we do is complicated. And yes, sometimes you can find them. You know, I try to find my investors deals that are below market, but they're not always going to find the same opportunity that I have. And nor did I want to take that first house and sell it to somebody. So here's the kicker. Like, fast forward 5 years later, that was my first rental property 5 years ago. I'd owned a couple before then, but this was really when I started my journey. Here's what it did. Here's what I want you guys to all see going forward and how fast this can go 5 years. That first house that I bought for 102.5 is now worth $265,000 today. It rents for $1,500 a month. I cash flow $700 a month. And if I go all the way back then, great, I would have earned $4,500 one time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a mindset. Do you want to sell houses? Which, yes, you're going to have to sell houses. But the mindset is, are you prepared for that one listing that you walk into that you're like, oh my God, this is an amazing opportunity, and you have to keep the drool off your mouth because you want it so bad. But the risk was, do I buy it with hard money? Do I take a negative in order to secure it? And had I not, where would I be? So all of us are in that standpoint right now. I don't know how many people on this call own rental properties. A lot of us wish we could. We just don't know how to do it. We just don't know what and how to structure it. That's what I'm here for.
And it's almost like finding the opportunity is step one. And then
it's being prepared for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's going to happen, and it's okay, either way is going to happen. I wasn't prepared for the opportunity. I was prepared in mind. This is what I was looking for, and the why.
Mm-hmm.
What is my why behind the rental property? Well, it's to produce wealth down the road. It's to get somebody else to pay off this asset. And I know real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't invest in stocks because I don't know diddly squat about them. I don't know how the stock market works, nor do I want to know how it works. I know how real estate works, and I know how real estate works in my backyard. I don't invest anywhere but Phoenix. This is where my home base is. So it's being prepared to know what you're looking for. And even if it comes up and you're like, okay, now what? I've got this deal. Then you got to figure out where it goes from there. And sometimes you might be prepared to buy it. Sometimes it might just be an opportunity to produce income. And we're all at different levels in our business where you might be at a point where you need to produce income. Don't feel like another opportunity is never going to come. I can tell you, like, we've bought 600 homes in the last 5 years. The opportunity will always be there. And you just have to find your scale. Everybody's got a scale. So how long have you been in the business?
1 year.
You're already thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a good start. If you add this in your first year, which is where I wished I would have been, and you have this mindset, guess what? You're prepared no matter where the market goes.
Mm-hmm.
If I was more prepared in mindset when the market shifted in 2008, I would have been like a kidney candy store.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take you could buy houses on credit cards and cash flow. And people were doing it. I just didn't see it. And now I kick myself. Well, even 5 years ago when I was looking at that house on Wood, I'm like, God, this is expensive. I sold these houses for $50,000 5 years ago. Well, I had to start somewhere.
Right.
And so it's having that mindset, and it's also having the plan of, what do I want my retirement to look like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody's got different goals. You might be like, hey, I want to have $5,000 a month of passive income through rentals. Okay, well, how many houses is that going to take? At what age do you want it to be at? I'll share with you my goal. It's 50-50 at 50. I want to own 50 homes free and clear at the age of 50, which is 8 years away. It will produce upwards of $50,000 a month in residual income.
That's awesome.
With probably about $20 million of free and clear real estate.
Mm-hmm.
That's my goal. Why is that a goal? Because it's my responsibility to change my family tree and change what it looks like for my kids. And my bigger goal is that legacy goes into my trust, and whether I'm here or not, it's producing income for my kids and my grandkids. That's the goal. I don't want to be like my dad. I love my dad. I am like him, but I don't want to be like where he left off. And had he changed some things, and where he left off was he died having cancer, and he didn't own any real estate except for his primary house. So even though he was a genius at helping all these people create wealth, he didn't do it for himself. So now I started creating it for myself, and now I'm very passionate about the people on this call going, guys, you've got to do this for yourself. It's scary, but if you don't want to work your entire freaking life knowing that you helped all these other people build wealth and you never did it for yourself. Because in your first year of real estate, you're probably like, well, I got to make all these calls. I got to show all these houses. I got all these, but you never look in the mirror and go, hey, you in the mirror, you're one of my clients too.
Right.
We're always trying to please everybody else.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind as a real estate agent. You're just as important as the other people.
Mhm.
It's not your sole responsibility to sell yourself to the devil to make a commission. You're trading time for money. We all need to make income, and I get it. Because I still got to do the same thing. Believe it or not, I still show houses. I still list houses. I'm still out there. But guess what? This is why. Because all those appointments are opportunities. Those people that have figured out how to run these big teams, like, God, they're freaking awesome. Like, George Lawton's one of my great friends. He's a monster. Like, I wish, but guess what? I realized I'm not George. I never will be. I'm me. This is where I'm going and what I do. And George is a genius when it comes down to running and expanding and doing all that stuff. Like, he is definitely one of my heroes in this business.
Mhm.
I've tried to figure it out. It's not me. It just isn't. So you have to find who you are and where you want to be in the business, not what everybody else is doing.
Right.
I don't want to have 180 agents.
I'm one of his.
Are you? Well, good. Like, you're in a great spot for training. Like,
Yeah.
hell yeah. Like, I love Lawton Team. Like, that's where I refer a lot of agents. Go there. They'll train the shit out of you.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So you're in a good spot.
Yeah,
Just add some investment knowledge to it.
for
And,
sure.
George is big on the investments. He believes in the same thing that I do. You've got to have a piece of it.
Mhm.
That's where you're going to thrive from. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question, or actually two. Um, First one is, do you have any hard money lenders that you would recommend?
Yes. So Mike Swirlick, it's LM2
Okay.
Investments. And if you text me directly, I can share his contact information. It's 602
Okay.
769 3803 is my cell. He's my go-to in the hard money. And guys, that is where I started. I found traditional hard money. Now, traditional hard money, you're going to have sometimes 10% down.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, the relationship money is so much more important to your success than hard money is. Hard money is a great place to start. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. I'm doing another class tomorrow with Bernadette Espinoza on self-directed IRAs. That's a big place where I've taught my clients how to convert their 401k to a self-directed IRA, and then they start lending me money out of their IRAs for investment properties.
Okay. Oh, you know what? That's so funny. I actually know Mike.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I just looked them up. That's so funny. They're friends with my cousins that live across the street. That's
There you go.
hilarious.
Yeah, Mike's a good
Okay.
one.
Secondly, so I was looking into adding like wholesaling
Yep.
kind of to my business. So do you recommend any sort of classes or training that you know of that would, be pretty helpful? I'm not part of a team, just an individual agent. So I just want to learn how to get into wholesaling, how you find those deals, things like that.
How do I put this? So Steve Trang does a phenomenal podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He just pretty much interviews mostly wholesalers.
Okay.
There's a lot of great information on there.
Uh-huh.
I would tell you, here's my opinion from doing it. Some people may or may not agree with this. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Wholesalers have gotten a very bad name because
Yeah.
wholesalers throw a lot of shit against the wall. They leave a lot of people hanging. And I'm not saying that every wholesaler is like that, but people get into it and they're like, yeah, I want to wholesale because it's quick, easy money. And they write contracts on things that they can't perform on, and they leave people high and dry. And that's why what I said earlier was you're an opportunity seller. Okay. So opportunity selling is, this is, how long have you been in the business?
About 4 years.
Okay. So what I love about this, and this is where wholesalers miss the opportunity because they don't want to be licensed because they don't want the liability. There is no liability in solving people's problems.
Right.
Okay. There's agents on this call that have brought me listings and said, hey, I have an opportunity. Will you buy this? Rather than wholesaling is you're telling somebody you're an investor and you're going to buy it and then you're going to go out and sell that contract.
Right.
But being in the real estate business, it gives you the ability to make the phone ring, people DM you, text you because they have a house they need to sell.
Mm-hmm.
That's where your opportunity is. You may not be in a position to buy it, but you're in the opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity and earn some money on it.
Okay.
So, to answer your question there, Steve Trang has some stuff. I'm actually going to be, if you guys haven't signed up for my weekly text and emails, I'm going to be announcing doing, monthly group coaching. It's actually an every other week call. And I'm really going to go through a lot of different scenarios because there's ways to tie your business. So everybody's in one direction, but nobody's figured out how to tie it all together. You could be a realtor, or you can go get trained on a wholesaling. You want to be a flipper, or you want to be an investor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you guys how to tie it all together.
Okay.
Because there's opportunities in all of it.
Right.
And
right.
so there's steps to take, there's stories that I have, and there's ways to get there. And that's what I'm going to be going through twice a month, just going through these, hour and a half calls with different scenarios. It's going to be a place for you guys like, well, I have this opportunity. I don't know what to do with it. Here's what I know. You're never going to know what an opportunity is unless you know all the variables to it and how it comes through experience.
Right.
So whether it's my stories or your deals or whatever it is, that's what I'm trying to provide opportunity because again, you're trying to tie it all together because real estate opens the door to the opportunity to potentially buy something or bring somebody like myself, like, hey, I just went to this house like I did last week. We walked through 95 lean cuisine empty meals on the ground, and the guy's wife had dementia. The agent's like, I do not know what to do with this. So she brought it to me to buy it. She's not in a point to put it on the market because it can't go on the market. There's a bunch of different things. She brought it to me so we could go through the experience. She's going to create income. Eventually, I want her to be the one to say, well, I don't need to take it to Steve anymore. I'm good. Or, hey, I've got so much going on. I can't flip this one. You buy it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I can't hold every opportunity we come across. So we do sell some stuff outright. We do. I don't really wholesale, to be honest with you. I close on everything we buy.
Yeah.
If you bring me a contract on something or an opportunity, I'm going to be the agent. I'm going to be the buyer. Unless one of my partners buys it with me, and then they'll be the buyer on it. But the point being is that there's a way to tie it all together so that you can create different funnels of income in your business and not be just set on it just has to do with listings.
Right. Yeah. That's just kind of where I'm starting to get at this point is how can I diversify myself? And, obviously there's flipping, there's renting, there's wholesaling, there's all these, investing, there's all these different avenues I can take. So I'm just trying to explore just the different options that I have and to really diversify where my business is coming from. So
you really said the key to what's important is that it's options. If you can give a seller an option, if you can give a buyer an option, and as you start to experience those different options and different relationships, you're able to solve more problems and earn more money.
Right.
Giving you an example, because of what I've experienced and because I know how to tie it together and because of my relationships with money, there's some buyers that have gotten beat out so bad on multiple offers.
Oh yeah.
I just started paying cash for their house. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to buy it and then I'll sell it to you when we're done.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's nice.
There's so many different fields that
Yeah.
you can expand. And again, that's why I said, what are you focused on? Who are you focused on? It's not who you want to be in the business. It's where do you want to earn income? And by diversifying, it's a
Mhm.
great way to do it.
Right. So right now I'm under contract with a house that I am purchasing for our own house to live in.
Yep.
But now I'm starting, because I got such a good deal on it, because it does need to be fixed, but nothing super major. I already have $25,000 in equity.
Yep.
I close it early October, so in like 2 weeks. But now I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I have, at least $25,000 in equity. Should we live there? Should I just fix it up a little and rent it? Should I, like, there's so many opportunities, and the houses in that area are selling for, quite a bit more than what I bought it for. So I'm trying to figure out too, like, should we maybe not live there?
So
Should I rent it out?
you're having shiny object syndrome, which, look, I own 30 homes that are in the sweet spot of that $200,000 to $300,000 range right now. I could get multiple offers on all of them right now, but I have to discipline myself to know what the bigger picture is. I don't care what the values are. The only thing I care about the value right now is doing this major refinance to take advantage of the high price and low interest rate. Like, that's perfect storm right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could collect a bunch of money right now, but then what? I can't buy anything that I currently have. So for you, what's the price range of the house?
I bought it for $428,000.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, $25,000 equity in a $400,000 house is not a lot. By this time, you start putting it in MLS, making repairs to it. So you bought the house. In a couple of years, not that price range is really where my sweet spot is for rentals, but even if you live there and you have a decent mortgage, in a year, I'm going to tell you, you start hunting for the next opportunity that you can go live in, because the cheapest way into investing in real estate is by buying owner occupied and then keeping it as a rental and moving on to the next one.
I see. Okay. So for this one itself, you would think just stay in it, fix it up, whatever. And then, but in a year, look for another opportunity.
You guys are buying it owner occupied, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's your interest rate?
3.1.
Okay. 3.1. Do you guys understand that we're buying houses on introductory credit card rates right now?
Yes.
Like, nobody here has probably experienced what I saw my dad. And, I used to listen to my dad and his stories. There was a time that my dad was in the real estate market when interest rates were 18%. The 3% loans that are fixed for 30 years actually have value more than just the value in the house. There are so many things you can do with a house that has a 3% 30-year fixed rate on it, from lease options to leasing it to whatever. Those loans will be pure gold as inflation starts to hit and rates start to rise. And when somebody's like, look, I want to buy your house. Well, yeah, you can do, this gets complicated. You can do wraps on things because the payment's lower. There's all kinds of craziness you can do. So my advice to you is keep the house, keep the 3% interest rate. Because my guess is your payment's what? $1,900 a month, $2,000 a month?
Yeah, about there.
Okay. Most likely, you'll always be able to rent that house out for about that. And most likely, based on what I'm seeing in the rental market, can't find shit out there right now.
No.
Which means, are we going in that direction to where rentals, which I do think we are over the next 10 years, some of the articles I've read, we're going to have a shortage of housing. So owning the house at 3%, and guess what? Keep it for a year. And in a year, you start looking for the next deal where you can buy some equity that you're going to live in as an owner occupied, do some fix up, and you're going to keep that one as a rental. And you can do that over and over again without having 20% down.
Okay. If we wanted to rent this out for, whatever reason, if we wanted to rent it out, but we don't have 20% equity in it, I have, there's probably 10% in it.
Mhm.
So for it to be considered a rental property, I would need to come up with another $10,000 or 10%.
Nope.
No?
Here's
Okay.
why. Your intention is to buy it and owner occupy it. And as long as you do that for a year,
Hmm.
and you're obviously doing probably a 5% down conventional.
Yeah.
Okay. You bought it owner occupied. There is nothing in the rules or the guidelines that says you can't keep that loan for 30 years and rent it out,
Okay.
because you did what you intended to do, which is to live in it, and you
Hmm.
bought it owner occupied. The good news is you don't have to refinance it. You don't have to touch the equity in it. The only thing you need to
Hmm.
do is go, okay, well, the next house we're going to buy, depending on your family situation, I wished I would have moved around more when I was younger and kept those houses. The next situation is like, hey, the next house we buy, it's not going to be our forever home. We're buying something smaller. It's going to be lower price range. We're going to live in it for a year and do the same thing again.
Okay. Do you have to live in it for a year before you rent it out?
Not
Is that kind of like the rule?
rules are meant to be broken, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it like according to the lenders. You can't do it fraudulently. Like if you were to buy this
Right.
one and then you're like, we're going to fix it up, and then you keep it as a rental and you never live in it, then you've committed fraud.
Right. Right.
That's why the plan is we're definitely living here. We're moving in. We're making repairs,
Hmm.
and we're going to keep it.
Hmm.
You go on to the next one, you're putting that 5% down and you're keeping the house.
Yeah.
And you're doing it with the intent to live there. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't be like, oh crap, in 6 months, look at this fantastic deal. Now we can't.
Hmm.
That's not the key. Circumstances changed. And as long as
Right.
you can prove those circumstances, and I don't know that there's any, Chase Bank isn't knocking on your door and going, well, did you intend to live here?
Yeah.
You don't want to do it with any mischievous intent.
Hmm.
Once you start
Okay.
going down that road, your integrity and character is out the window. So you really
Sure.
have to do it with the true intent.
Hmm. Okay. Now, if for whatever reason we decide, no, you know what, we close on the house, you know what, we don't want to live there, we're going to fix it and rent it out. At that point, would I put that like 10% down to make it
No, because you've already
that's 20?
closed on it owner occupied. So you're stuck with that loan.
Okay.
There just
Okay.
better be some extenuating circumstances as to why you kept it as a rental,
Sure.
as far as not moving into it. But
Right.
my
Right.
suggestion is move into it.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, as a renter, if I want to buy rental property for investment for the future, I like new construction to buy new construction. What do you think is better for the future? New construction or just old home, flip it, or just fix it and rent it out? What is your opinion?
Such a great question. All of that's going to hinder on a couple of different things. Right now in the new construction market, you're going to have a really hard time with them selling to an investor. I know that a lot of them are not selling to investors. They're selling to homeowners. There's lotteries, some of the same stuff we saw in 2006. Me personally, I like older homes for a couple of reasons. I don't like homeowner associations. They're really bad. Who posted it yesterday? What is a group of Karens called? A homeowner association meeting. And that's the truth. But the worst part about owning rentals is that the HOA is constantly sending you letters and fines. And to be honest with you, I don't care if you park in my front yard as long as you're taking care of the house. I don't care. Older, smaller homes is really where I like to be because you can go through and renovate those and almost make them as new as a new home, other than, it's 30 years old. I mean, geez, my wife has houses, in her family that are 200 and some odd years old in Buffalo, New York, and they're still standing and people are still living in them. So the newer homes are great because you don't have as much hassle, but it doesn't mean that you can't. And well, here's two things. I'll give it to you. If you buy a new home, you're paying retail for it. There is no discount. There is no deal on it. You're paying flat out retail for it. You also have some expenses on a new build. You're going to have blinds and ceiling fans and appliances and yards and those types of things, right?
Yeah.
If you bought a $250,000 new build that's probably in Buckeye, and I don't know, can we buy $250,000 new builds anymore? I think those are pretty slim. That might be an apartment. If I could sell you a $175,000 older home and you could put 50 grand into it and be into it for 225 completely remodeled, where are you better off?
Uh-huh.
So I do like the new builds. I've always loved new builds. I think new builds has to be a more specific strategy of location. And are you buying at the beginning of the subdivision or the end?
It depends. I don't know. I like at the first because we have like 6 or 7 months to handle all and to see the price, if the price is gonna go up or stay the same. This is what my plan.
Yeah. Don't ever buy anything based on going up though.
Oh, okay.
It's got to make sense on the numbers. That's speculation. That's what got a lot of people in trouble in 2005 is, they bought based on, well, this is going to go up in price and I'm going to be rich. And then all of a sudden it went the other way.
What about now the market? If we want like investment, buy the house, old or new construction, but what after the price go up? Do you think it's a good idea now to start like buy house and flip it and then sell it or rent it out?
That's such a loaded question. There's so many answers to that. I think it's based on where you are in your career and what you're trying to accomplish. If you're buying things based on appreciation, I wouldn't do that. I'm buying things based on the deal that I can get. It's kind of like reverse appreciation. If I can buy something with $40,000 in equity in it today, and I know that it can be rented out and it can cash flow, that's what I'm buying, if it makes sense. If you're buying based on the fact that, hey, this is going to go up and it's a new build, question is it going to cash flow? Are you going to be able to refinance it down the road? That's, where I gave the other gal the information was, the stuff that I'm buying has equity that I can go back and use as down payment. Because if you buy a new build, you got to put 20% down. So now you have 20% tied up in it. Me, I'm going and buying stuff that's got 15 to 20% equity in it that I don't have to put my own cash into, which gives me the ability to buy and own more properties.
Yeah, that means put like 40 or 50% of the price.
You're going to put 40 or 50% down?
Like around that, yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't do that either. Here's why. You can borrow money at 3% right now. I'm borrowing money from hard money lenders at 8%. So, if you're putting 50% down, you should be able to spread that across 2, almost 3 homes rather than buy one house, because the cash flow isn't going to change much. And the fact is you can secure 3 homes at 3% interest rate with 20% down rather than having 50% into it, because your cash flow, like what, you're going to have a $500 a month mortgage that you're making $1,000 a month. But then if the same thing you talked about, which is the appreciation. Well, what happens if you have 3 homes appreciating at 10% a year versus 1?
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, it really depends. Like, this is where the strategies come into place. If we were to sit down and you said, well, I'm trying to, create this much income in this amount of years, this is what I want to do, then there might be a different strategy to it. So it really depends on what you're trying to create.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the questions.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Rhonda, you're awfully quiet today. Well, thanks for being the only person on camera. That's the only focus today, is you smiling and laughing at me. So, all right, guys, I went a little bit over today, but I was just trying to answer questions and give you guys what you need. If there's anything I can do, please reach out. Always available for you. And don't forget, I've got a class tomorrow. It's not my home group class, just through Lawyer's Title for self-directed IRAs, which is a great tool to create your private hard money source through your clients. Don't forget some social media for me. I would appreciate it. See you guys. Bye, Kelly.